You can see this image tries to capture the idea of corporations across borders. We're doing them together, so they'll both be within one PowerPoint. Yep. So whoever created this graphic is trying to visualize the way TNCs go across state borders. They don't stick within one state where their home corporation is listed. They're everywhere. And we've got something to introduce. Oh, I haven't got the right link.
People of Pompeii, let the games begin!
This will be on the video.
Bloody death is...
All right, it's time now for Word of the Day, where I break down a financial term or concept for our very smart viewer, but just perhaps not, the financial expert, the John Perkins in the crowd. So we've been talking a lot about this one with John Perkins because we've been talking about corporate interests. So I want to break down what is a multinational corporation, because that's really a lot of who we're talking about. So let's look at exactly what this means. But first, let's look at another way this is being used today. So we got this from an op-ed that appeared on CTV, which is the Canadian News Network. This is actually from an Occupy protester, and this is what they wrote in their op-ed, if we could bring that up. For too long, citizens have been content to follow where government and multinational corporations lead. The profit motive has become immune to attack. It is understood that as long as something is profitable for shareholders, nothing else matters enough. So what exactly makes a company then a multinational corporation? Let's bring up the definition. It's a corporation, of course, obviously, that has its facilities and other assets in at least one country other than its home country. Very large multinationals, too, have budgets that exceed those of many small countries, to give you a sense of their power and their reach. Now, some of the largest, what are they? Let me give you examples. There are companies that are household names: ExxonMobil, Nestle, IBM, Royal Dutch Shell, Microsoft, Walmart, BP, Chevron, General Electric, Citigroup, Monsanto, the list goes on. They're behind me, and the reason they're spinning around on a globe like this is because, according to someone like our guest economist and author John Perkins, multinational corporations know no national boundaries, they don't follow any specific sets of laws, and they have a lot of cash. So they have a lot of influence in politics and in policy. So this influence explains why, for example, U.S. military motivations may be called into question when you hear someone like, say, Senator John McCain, say something like this. It was back in September on a visit of congressional leaders to Libya in the midst of the NATO mission. Take a listen.
American investors are more than eager to come and invest here in Libya. And we hope that and believe that they will be given an opportunity to do so. And it's pretty clear that as long as fighting is going on, it'll be more difficult to attract that investment.
So when we're talking about investors and attracting that kind of investment, a multinational corporation would be a really good example of the kind of investor who may be looking to cash in.
She was wrong about one thing she said. Anyone pick up on it? It relates to states. No, she was right there. I hadn't noticed that. She said they don't have to follow laws. They absolutely do have to follow the laws in the states where they exist. So any company that sets up in Australia has to abide by Australian law. So she was wrong about that. Yeah. No, they have to. So McDonald's down the road has to abide by Australian law. McDonald's in Singapore has to abide by Singapore law. So you have to abide by the laws in the state where you are. Right. I think she was trying to give us the impression that they're somehow lawless, that because they're all over the place, there aren't a set of international laws, but there are a set of international laws around trade, and the World Trade Organization sets them up. So we've got international laws as well as national laws, and TNCs have to abide by both. Here are your 4 headings. So if you just put TNCs down as your final global actor, and we're going to change just one of these because the study design actually tells us only for this global actor. A little cartoon. Trying to capture the idea of the mining boom and the effect on Australia. We are the lucky country. Okay, the study design tells us that we need to know the economic and political power of TNCs. So under power, it's not just power and whatever I tell you. It's the economic and political power, and we actually get the answers. So they're already telling us the answers. For this global actor, the power TNCs have are trade, foreign direct investment, and employment. In some ways, it's really handy. They've already told us what the answer is. You just need to be able to explain why that gives them power. And just like all the other global actors, names wrong. But the key is the middle dot point, and it's here. So if you're copying it down, now you put a little subheading: trade, foreign direct investment, employment. No, they're going to be 3 different things. I've got 1 slide for each of them in this PowerPoint. So the UN has the power, gets its power from the ability to deploy peacekeepers. TNCs get their power from trade, FDI, and employment. That's the only thing that's different about this global actor. It's that we've got answers that are the ones you have to refer to. Okay. TNCs. Study design also gives us a definition for this global actor: a company whose operations and investments extend beyond the borders or boundaries of the state in which it is registered, may also be referred to as multinational. So what this means is Rio Tinto is registered in Australia, but it has mines in Indonesia, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Indonesia. So it is registered in one state, but it does business in many states. Google is registered in the US. It does business in Australia. It has offices in Sydney. You can access its services from Melbourne. So you're talking about corporations which exist beyond the boundaries of the state where they're registered. And we've done the little activity at the bottom already. What do you mean? So we're going to learn about 2. I'm just giving you a little bit of background about TNCs broadly. So we're about to start Rio Tinto and Good. Yep. No, they're separate. Because the same one does say TNCs, plural, so we need to be prepared to talk about 2. I'm going to do them both. Yes, they're going to have very similar aims. They're going to be almost identical in most ways. And I think it's almost impossible that you'd ever be asked to compare the 2. So mostly, almost 90% of what we do is Rio Tinto based on only talking about one TNC. So we're mostly going to do Rio Tinto. Defining them, they extend beyond the boundaries of one state. They're typically in developed states. So all the big companies in the world tend to be set up in places like New York, or California, or Tokyo, or Melbourne, or London, or Paris. They have their host city, their host operations in big cities, and then they set up their little factories in developing states because the wages are cheap. This is how they make their money.
So it's a host country where they make it.
Yes. As opposed to the base.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty simple economic principle. You want to produce your goods as cheaply as possible, that's going to happen where you can pay the wages as low as possible. And the hosts are always changing. For the 90s and early 2000s, China was the real hub of manufacturing. But as a result of most of the companies in the world shifting their manufacturing to there, the wages have gotten too expensive. In fact, and TNCs are now shifting their manufacturing out of China. They're not willing to pay $3 an hour when they want to pay $2 an hour to a worker. So they're moving it to Bangladesh. We're not going to do this activity, but it's on the PowerPoint if you want to. You've got a copy of the VCE textbook. This is in reference to the VCE textbook. You can open up those pages in your time and do that short reading. A couple of questions. These are our two TNCs, Rio Tinto and Google. And I've chosen them because they're a little bit different, but they're also a little bit similar. In essence, the aim of a TNC is the same for every TNC. What does every TNC aim to do? Money. Specifically, what with money? And give it to whom? Not themselves. Yes, the people who own the company. So almost every TNC in the world is listed on the share market and is owned by shareholders. And that means the companies have to return money to shareholders. So what I've got to follow is the aim is to maximize profit for the shareholder. And the bit in the bold is the bit from their websites. So Rio Tinto says, our core objective is to maximize the long-term return to shareholders. That's the first thing in their mission statement. Through finding, mining, processing minerals. So their first aim is to maximize profit for the shareholder. Google has something a little bit different. It starts with, our mission is to organize the world's information. How nice. And make it universally accessible and useful. But right underneath that is their second dot point. We believe strongly that in the long term we'll be better served as shareholders and in all other ways by a company that does good. So they still couldn't help mentioning the importance of returning value to the shareholder. For both of them, the first aim is the same, maximising profit. So for both of them, one of your answers will be maximising profit for the shareholder. The second one will be specific to each. So in this case, their aim is to find mining minerals. In this case, it's to organise those. You can shorten it in this case to finding, mining, and processing minerals. And in Google's case, you can shorten it to organising the world's information, making it accessible. With this global actor, it doesn't have to be everyone is going to TNC. And the global exam will have chosen a different TNC. So it can be something like, maximising profit to the shareholder or making as much money as possible. Yes. Every TNC has the aim of maximising profit. That will be one of the aims. This one, let's have a look at what each of these do in a little more detail. Rio Tinto.
You just don't even think of all the impacts that mining and commodities have on your daily life. And until you stop and get presented with them in your face, you just don't even think.
Copper that we need for electrical cables.
Your lead, zincs, your aluminiums, your iron ores, it all makes the world keep moving.
In the last 10 years, we doubled our rate of production from a little over 100 million tonnes per annum to over 200 million tonnes per annum. We're looking to add over another 100 million tonnes per annum in half the time. So it tells you something about the rate of growth that we're investing in.
This is my best job.
What drives me to work for Rio Tinto is the integrity of the business. So when people come and join our company, the observation they make is that we do what we say we're going to do.
We can measure ourselves by the way we work in our communities, the way we partner with stakeholders within our communities, traditional owners of the land that we operate on, making sure that they gain the benefits that they deserve from the work that we're doing on their country.
People are choosing to come and work here because of the technology, but also the safety aspect of it. The highest production this mine's ever seen coincided with the best safety record this mine ever had.
Rio Tinto has done a lot throughout Africa.
Raw diamonds in Zimbabwe.
They've developed a partnership model. We are into education, health, enterprise development, and water development. We want to leave a positive legacy such that the communities will speak for us years after we've gone.
I think that's not only a nice to have, it's becoming more and more a way to compete, a way to differentiate ourselves.
AP technology is designed with Rio Tinto sustainability goals in mind. It's one of the most globally used technologies in the world, so it's very strategic to Rio Tinto Alcan. Our latest variant has a productivity that's 40% higher than all competing technologies around the world.
I'm going to stop it there. First of all, you get the impression that they must have a lot of money because they make really good videos. Pretty well put together. They probably hired film producers to make that kind of thing. But you can see it trying to achieve its aim. All the hints towards economic growth, growing the company, increasing profits, increasing production. And the other half of the equation is the mining, the minerals, etc. What about Google? Very different vibe.
Google is kind of a unique company for me and I think for a lot of people that work there. What Google does is it allows you a fantastic environment to be innovative and to get your product developed really quickly.
It is a very different structure than the rest of the engineering community.
We always really try to avoid bureaucracy so that people can really do what makes sense in their project.
One thing that's great about Google is that you have a lot of autonomy over your product and its directions.
We're encouraged to work on whatever we think is important. Often the best ideas come from employees.
At Google, if you come in your first week and you have a good idea on how things should be done, and people agree with you, in that first week you can start making those changes.
The biggest resource is definitely the people.
One of the things that attracted me to Google and makes it a very comfortable place is they hire people who are very good.
I think Google goes after people that are entrepreneurial, that are kind of go-getters.
Everyone in the company is just so accessible and everyone's really driven to make the company succeed.
No two employees will have had the same background. There's no formula.
We have people straight out of college, we have people who've been in the industry for 25 years.
The concentration of talent that we have at Google is really quite amazing.
I come to work and I look forward to the conversations I'm going to have during the day with my colleagues and with people I haven't met yet within the company, because I know that today I'm going to find 5 new great ideas that I'm going to get excited about.
We have yoga, we have Pilates.
I love massages, I'm a spa queen.
Let me mention the food.
Food here, by the way, is great.
We have a French lunch where we get together and we speak French. We have the great cafeterias.
There's any type of amazing cuisine, even better than some of the restaurants in New York.
That's an extra benefit and pretty nice.
you know that what you're working on will be seen by millions and millions of people. And when you have that kind of visibility,
you're in a position to make a difference to people that you've never met.
It's something that makes it just fun to go to work in the morning because you're thinking about the people that you're going to talk to, the problems that you're going to try to tackle and solve. So it's really a great place to work.
Yes, they pay the highest paid interns in the world. A very different vibe to the video, of course. A lot of dorks in that video who are earning a lot of money, so I shouldn't laugh at them. They're laughing at me. All right, you now know a little about each of those companies, their roles. If it sounds like these are repetitive, they are. But it's the simplest way to say what each of them do. Remember, this is the doing. What does Rio Tinto do? It finds minerals, it mines minerals, it processes minerals, it sells them. So it's fine if this is repetitive. If you had to identify the aim question and then to describe the role, they're going to be almost the same. That's fine. Finding, mining, and processing minerals in the case of Rio Tinto. In the case of Google, you could talk broadly about what they do. We don't even need the PowerPoint to talk about what they do. What do Google do? They create websites, they help share information, they provide access to digital information, organize the words information for us. So the roles are pretty simple for both of them. And the fact that you're exposed to companies like this so frequently during your day means you're probably going to be able to describe the roles pretty easily. If you had a longer answer, filling it up with the example, help you drag out what you want to say. The power. This is where it gets a little bit harder. I think up to this point, they're pretty straightforward. We need to be able to talk about the power that these TNCs have in terms of trade, foreign direct investment, and employment. So, in terms of employment, TNCs are incredibly powerful because they employ huge numbers of people. Huge. General Electric employs over 300,000. Walmart, over 2 million employees. McDonald's, close to 2 million, Volkswagen, 500,000. To put this in perspective, St. Catherine's employs about 150 employees. So we're talking about massive numbers of people across many states working for one corporation. This gives TNCs political power. Because they employ such large numbers of people, they can hire and fire large numbers of people, and this puts pressure on governments. Governments look bad when unemployment goes up. Governments look bad when companies close down under their watch. So right now, the Abbott government is taking a hit because the Australian car companies have been closing down in the last 6 months. Even though it's not his fault, and this has nothing to do with any particular policy of Tony Abbott, the voters are holding him a little bit responsible just because of the timing. So TNCs, through the number of people they employ, gain political power. You know, if St. Catherine said to the Australian government, we're going to close down unless you give us financial support, the government's not going to blink an eye, they're going to go, fine. It's 100 employees. If McDonald's said, we're going to close every McDonald's store and we're going to have to lay off 150,000 workers, there's going to be some intense negotiations in Canberra about how they can help McDonald's stay open. They have political power because of their size. And these two stats are the ones Rio Tinto 70,000, Google 48. Workers, employees. These were 2013 stats. Sorry, yeah, I should have made that. I took them from their own websites. So they're very large corporations. These are amongst the 2 largest corporations on Earth. Sure, they don't hire as many people as the other ones, but they're huge in terms of profit and revenue. So employment gives them power. Foreign direct investment. It's a big term, but it's not as complex as it sounds. This is about the movement of capital across borders. hence the foreign. Once one corporation spends money in another state, they're doing foreign direct investment. So when McDonald's opens up a new store in Flinders Street, that's foreign direct investment. When Rio Tinto builds a new mine in Indonesia, that's foreign direct investment. What's the new clothing company that just opened in the city? The Uniqlo? Uniqlo. It's a Japanese. So that's foreign direct investment. Every time a foreign fashion label opens up a new store, that's foreign direct investment. The movement of capital across borders. Benefits can include improvements in infrastructure. So often if you build a new mine, you've got to build roads to that mine. If you're going to have 1,000 workers in that mine, you need to build a local primary school, a local hospital. If you're building a new mine and you want to ship your resources, you need to build a new port. So often foreign direct investment comes with improved infrastructure. And because it involves money, wages almost always go up. I hate the idea of people getting paid low wages, but the factories in Asia have queues of people, of poor people waiting to work. So the clothing stores in Bangladesh have queues of people who have no job, queuing up to stitch things together and get paid $2 an hour. Because the alternative is they look through rubbish bins for food. So living standards almost always go up as a result of FDI. Because money is going somewhere where there was no money. There are other ethical issues which are an argument for another day. This is another side benefit. Sometimes other local businesses will start up near where foreign direct investment occurs. That's certainly the case when new mines are set up. Lots of local businesses will set up around the mine to take advantage of all the new workers there. That's not that important. The power comes through the shifting of capital, cash, across borders. And I've got two visuals here that are going to show you how powerful that can be. This is Rio Tinto's mines around the world. Every one of these mines is an example of foreign direct investment. So when they shift money to South Africa, that gives them $2 billion that wasn't in the South African market. When they go to India and they want to set up their oil rigs off the coast, and it costs them hundreds of millions of dollars, that's money that goes to the Indian government through the paying of taxes. So companies love foreign direct investment. Countries and states love it. Because you have to pay tax on that investment. You have to employ people. It grows local infrastructure. So every single one of these projects are appreciated by the states where they exist. Local people might not always appreciate it. There are lots of issues, but foreign direct investment is what states want. It's cash that they otherwise wouldn't get. And most of these projects along the coast of Australia, which are done by Rio Tinto, they're projects that are done with cash from usually Asian investors. Rio Tinto says, we're going to new mine here. It's going to cost $4 billion to set it up. We'll put forward $2 billion. Only investors out there want to put Japanese, Chinese, South African investors. That money comes into Australia, which otherwise wouldn't have been in Australia. Foreign direct investment. One of the most attractive sources of foreign direct investment, that's the mining boom. The mining boom was money coming into Australia that wasn't here before. That's why our wages are amongst the highest in the world. So that's Rio Tinto. That's Google. They're only the offices of Google. This is where they've set up offices around the world. And in some of those states, if you zoom in, there's multiple arrows within the one state. So every time Google sets up a new office, hires all these young IT guns to work and sets up a little cafeteria and all the rest of that, like you saw in the video, that's foreign direct investment. And that's what states want. It gives TNCs power over states. Economic power, yes. Through economic power, they gain political power. It's the same with all three of these things. They use their economic power, money, to get political power, decision making. The third one, trade. When you have a business, any business, and you make money, you have to pay tax. And you pay tax to the government or the state. So TNCs return billions of dollars in revenue to states. It's that simple. It doesn't matter whether if you're not a TNC, you still pay tax to the state, but TNCs are so big that their revenue is very, very large. And I wanted to give you an example here. Rio Tinto runs a gold mine in West Papua. It's the largest gold mine in the world. In 2004, $3 billion in tax revenue from one mine alone. They're the largest taxpayer in Indonesia. So if Rio Tinto left Indonesia, they've just closed this one mine, there'd be a $3 billion hole in the budget. So they've got power. Through their economic power, they gain political power. $3 billion from one mine. And that's just the tax revenue. Imagine how much they'd be making in profit from that mine. No, ignore that. Here he has two stats. Tinto, 51 billion revenue, Google 60 billion. So this is the trade that they do. And as a result of that trade, they're paying taxes to states. Yep, you can read it, but the point is TNCs gain political power because of trade, because of money they pay to the state through tax. That's a lot of revenue.
That's how much money revenue making.
No, it's not profit and it's not tax. Revenue is how much trade you do. So if I sell, this means they sold 61. So, as a result of those types of power, these companies gain political influence. So we're now up to the last thing, influence. And they're influential in ways that Human Rights Watch can't be influential, because of the amount of money they control. So in the case of Rio Tinto, it was incredibly influential in shaping our current government, in giving us an Abbott government. All the mining companies were so against the mining tax that they ran ads constantly, not just in the TV, but in newspapers and magazines that you probably wouldn't read, but which voters, who are very active voters, do read. And so companies like Rio Tinto lobbied against the mining tax and against the Labor government. So they shaped what government we ended up with. And the same thing happens over in Indonesia. Rio Tinto is so important to the economy, they're allowed to do things to West Papua which any other organisation wouldn't be allowed to do. They gain political influence because of their economic power, in a way that I could never have that kind of political influence over the state, short of a terrorist incident, which is quite extreme, and I'm not willing to do. Yes. Effective. That was a joke. No one quote me on that. So they are effective. They're effective because they take advantage of globalization. They're effective because of their profits, their economic power, all the things you just heard about. These things are a sign of their influence. They use their economic power to influence government. I want to show you the specific example which you're going to use, which is the ads that they ran about the mining tax. Yes. Yes. So the same example, which is Rio Tinto and other Australian TNCs lobbying against the mining tax, is the one you can use for any question about TNC. Just like with all... Well.
The truce is over. The truce over the government's resource profits tax has come to an end. Despite last-minute meetings with the Federal Resources Minister Martin Ferguson in Perth, the mining industry will relaunch its anti-resources tax campaign on Wednesday. Mr Ferguson says the fight is being driven by political motives, with Liberal Party supporters behind it. Alicia O'Flaherty reports.
This is the new face of the mining industry's campaign against the resources tax.
Some people would have you believe that only miners are concerned about the new mining tax. I'm not a miner, but I am concerned.
Smaller miners have delivered on their threat to restart their campaign, with television and print ads to run nationally from Wednesday. They will be funded by members of the Association of Mining and Exploration Companies, including Andrew Forrest's Fortescue Metals Group.
It's our intention to run this over the next 3 weeks, whatever's required to get a result.
I think people need to know that a deal hasn't been done that satisfies the industry. They've only really met with the big guys.
Even last-minute meetings with the Resources Minister in Perth did little to ease their concerns.
It was a cordial meeting, frank discussion, and that was it.
The industry's advertising campaign will coincide with 2 others, run by Queensland's Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the United Retail Federation. The Resources Minister, Martin Ferguson, says he believes the decision to restart...
Oh, it's going to be cut short. A good time to turn to page 35. I might read it. I didn't print any copies out. Of the subject reader. Because this is your example. Yep. Page 35. And I might start reading. It's about how much TNCs are willing to pay to get the influence they want. A snip at 22 million to get rid of PM. How much does it cost to bring down a Prime Minister? The answer, a tad over 22 million. That's how much the mining industry spent in 6 weeks last year on its campaign against Kevin Rudd's plan for a resource super profit tax, the mining tax. The advertising and public relations campaign dominated the airways in May and June. But the Australian Electoral Commission's political spending disclosure for 2009-10, released yesterday, revealed just how much the miners spent campaigning against the plans to levy a 40% tax on their super profits. Their campaign contributed significantly to a slump in Labor's electoral standing in the middle of last year, which prompted Labor MPs to replace Mr Rudd as Prime Minister with Julia Gillard. The figures show the industry spent $22.2 million on the campaign, which ran from the start of May until late June when Ms Gillard took over and she negotiated a compromise on the tax. The industry's national body, the Ministry of Council Australia, spent $17.2 million, mainly on TV advertisements. BHP spent $4.2, Rio Tinto spent $537,000, and other lobby groups spent $274. A spokesman for the Minerals Council said the tax had been a threat to the viability of Australia's mineral industry. Quote, the MCA campaign reflected the size and nature of that threat, he said. The Resources Super Profit Tax, the RSPT, would have destroyed shareholder value, shelved projects, and acted as a massive disincentive to future minerals industry investment, with negative flow-on consequences for every Australian, unquote. The figures suggest the Mining Association still has about $1.5 million in unspent donations collected from WA companies at the height of the campaign. The association's members, smaller mining companies, are not happy with the compromise Ms Gillard struck. So you've got TNCs who don't like a political policy. They gather together their economic wealth. They spend about $22 million to either get rid of the tax or get rid of the person who put that tax there, which was the Prime Minister, in order to have influence. Quite significant in terms of a challenge to the state's authority, a challenge to popular sovereignty, the will of the people. On page 36, there's a second article. We're not going to read it now because we don't have time. It elaborates. It's just another news article about the miners challenging that tax. If you turn over the page again, page 37, there is a very short article. And I really like this example because it's different. It's about military influence. Rio Tinto, implicated in payments to Indonesian military. US-based mining giant Freeport-McMoRan is still paying Indonesian troops to protect the large gold and copper mine in Papua, despite regulations requiring the military to hand over to police. London-based Rio Tinto helped finance the expansion of the Grasberg mine and continues to profit from its operations. Freeport-McMoRan said its local subsidiary paid less than $1.6 million through wire transfers and cheques in 2008 to provide a monthly allowance to police and soldiers at and around the mine. The disclosure, made in response to questions from Australian Federal Police, AFP. No, that's not what it is, that's Associated Foreign Press. In response to questions from Associated Foreign Press, means the company continues to pay soldiers in contravention of a series of legal measures aimed at stopping military units working as paid protection. So in this scenario, a TNC is so powerful, it can get the Indonesian military to lend it its military to protect its assets. A sign of the power and influence of TNCs. They can get governments overthrown through campaigns. They can get the military to protect their assets. Influential? Absolutely. They're your examples. If you wanted to stick to the mining tax, that's fine. However, as always, the limitations to their influence. They have no sovereignty. So they don't have recognised power and authority. They must abide by laws in states. They might try and change those laws through TV campaigns. They have to abide by the laws while they're here. And lastly, in the dog-eat-dog world of free market capitalism, and most of the time when they lose out or they collapse because of other TNCs. Holdings leaving not because there's a really productive Australian car company, but because there are other car companies taking their profit. But they are absolutely limited in their influence, in particular in terms of abiding by the laws of states. Get the time. Okay. I'll go to the next slide. You're not going to do these questions now because you don't have time. Yes, do these as your revision or as the final thing we're doing on TNCs. And next lesson we'll go over them. They just relate to those two readings I just read out. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they just relate to those two short readings getting you to understand, make connections between the two examples and the power and influence of TNCs. So they're on the PowerPoint. You can get the PowerPoint from my portal. So hopefully you've got your record book open now and you're writing down, get PowerPoint, do 5 questions, use the subject reader to answer the question. That's what you should be writing down in your record book right now.